It's December 31st, 1996. Your friends invited you to a New Year's party, but you don't have time for such trivialities. You need to do something more important, something more primal. Follow your base instincts. Slay. You're good at that, but tonight is different. Tonight is special because there is a lot of prey for you to choose from. So grab your favorite weapon, get out there, and start the carnage. What am I talking about? It's Diablo's release date, of course.
What is good, everyone, and welcome to the Backlog Project, the weekly review series where you get to choose what I review next. Just head down to the description of the video to vote in our current poll, and keep an eye out on the channel's community page for even more voting opportunities. People who've been following my channel for a while might know that I'm a pretty big Blizzard fan, which mostly stems from me playing World of Warcraft for over 15 years and also enjoying Overwatch quite a bit. There are, however, a few Blizzard titles I've never really gotten into. One of those is Diablo. So I took the plunge and started right where the series began. Diablo plus Hellfire. Let's see how the original demon slaying game holds up over 25 years later.
You start the game as a nameless adventurer in the town of Tristram, and just by talking to a few people there, you can easily see that it's not really going well for the town that was built on the prison of a demon. Who'd have guessed? Right next to the town is the entrance to an ancient monastery that was used to conceal the Lord of Hell Diablo, who was trapped in an enchanted crystal called Soulstone many generations ago. The power of his prison wanes, and King Leoric decides to rebuild the monastery into his cathedral, prompting Diablo to manipulate the Archbishop Lazarus into destroying the Soulstone. He then tries to possess the king, but fails due to the king's mental fortitude, which leaves Leoric in a heavily broken mental state. Since Diablo needs a vessel, he makes Lazarus kidnap the king's son, Albrecht, and takes him to the deepest levels of the catacombs beneath the cathedral. This is where you come into play. Your job is to delve into the catacombs, defeat Lazarus, and rescue Prince Albrecht. Or kill what he has turned into, and slay thousands of demons on your way down. It's always hard to judge the visuals of a game this old from a modern point of view, but GOG has made it a lot easier on the eyes by making the version they released in 2019, which is the only one that runs on modern PCs, display in full HD. Obviously, the game looks pretty outdated from today's standpoint. Character animations are stale, there aren't a lot of visual effects going on, and with only 4 different levels, there isn't a lot of visual variety in this game. What it does have, however, is atmosphere. Diablo is a pretty gory game with lots of demons that will stop at nothing to kill you. Add to that the dark corridors you explore, filled with tombs, prisons, and corpses of the adventurers that came before you, and you get a very dense, even scary atmosphere that easily makes you forget the technical shortcomings of the game. Atmosphere is also what we need to address when talking about the soundtrack. There isn't a lot. The whole score consists of only 6 tracks, 1 for the main screen, 1 for the town of Tristram, and 1 for each of the 4 levels you will explore on your way down the cathedral. But each of them is so incredibly layered that you will not only recognize them immediately, but they will stick with you forever. It speaks volumes that when Blizzard surprise announced Diablo 3, they only had to play the first few chords of Tristram's theme to make the crowd go into a frenzy without even showing the game yet. This score is horror in its purest form. Chilling violins whining in the background, deep basses driving you further into the dungeon where you can hear the wind blow and make out faint screams and whispers echoing through the hallways as you descend deeper and deeper on your way to hell itself, with the music growing more violent each minute. But there's something more to it, something that elevates this score from a meticulously crafted horror collage to the perfect accompaniment to slaying demons: rock. Matt Ullman cleverly placed subtle but very palpable elements of classic gothic rock music inside the disturbing horror themes. Tribal drum sounds always encouraging you to press on, while electric guitars give you enough courage to try and complete your quest, futile as it may be to go up against the Lord of Hell as a mere mortal. If I had to describe Diablo's music in one word, it would be intense. Not because the soundtrack is overwhelming or sticks out, but because it manages to be subtle enough to not take you out of the experience, but also noticeable enough to be iconic and stick in your head for however long you live, if you can make it out of the dungeon alive. When developing Diablo, the team wanted to get away from the complicated RPG formula that was the standard back then. No expansive, lore-filled intro, no long character creation process where you assign stats and create a backstory. Just choose your class, get into the game, and start slaying. And honestly, that's pretty much what the game is. When you start, you get to choose from one of the three classes: the warrior, the rogue, and the sorcerer. Each have their own playstyle and special ability, but most of the items and spells in the game can be used by them all, provided they have the appropriate stats. You give your character a name and instantly start out in Tristram, where you talk to some NPCs to get a basic idea of what's going on. Once you're ready, you head into the cathedral's dungeon that gets randomly generated for each save file and start slaying some basic skeletons and undead by clicking on them to attack, and attack, and attack some more just to be sure. Honestly, the gameplay isn't exactly complicated or deep. Diablo doesn't give your characters any skills or abilities, so all you do is attack. The sorcerer is a little different in that he has a lot of spells at his disposal, but most of them are either very situational or flat out useless, so even that boils down to spamming the same spell over and over. To keep you alive, you can use healing and mana potions that don't stack, meaning every single potion takes up a space in your inventory. In general, Diablo feels more like an inventory management game than an actual action RPG, because you will be spending a lot of time trying to get the most out of your inventory before eventually you'll have to return to town to sell your loot. And there is a lot of loot. Aside from money, enemies will often drop new gear, which will either be of normal or rare quality. Normal items are usually just there to be sold for a bit of gold, and even that loses its value pretty quickly with how few things you actually have to spend gold on in this game. Rare items come with special perks that range from increasing your stats to giving you some passive bonuses like a higher armor multiplier or finding more money. These are what you want to wear, because you will be pretty helpless on your increasingly difficult way to Diablo if you don't have some cool bonuses to help you out. To be fair, there isn't anything super creative here that might facilitate different character builds or changes in your gameplay. You mostly just keep an eye out for gear that will buff stats that you're going for and make doing what you're already doing a little bit faster and stronger. In theory, your gear can also break, but you can easily repair it at the smithy, so if you just repair every time you go back to Tristram, you won't have to worry about this feature at all. Going back is a pretty lengthy process. Enemies in Diablo don't respawn, so if you clear it away, you never have to worry about being killed on your way back if you run out of potions, but it takes a damn long time to do so. The game is split into 4 levels, each with 4 floors, for a total of 16. Only the first floor of every level has a shortcut to the surface, and your character moves slow. If you want to get back out from the 4th floor of any given level, be prepared for a 5 to 10 minute trip every time. This feels horrible and is the exact opposite of the visceral action game Diablo wants to be, so thank fucking god the developers thought of a way to fix that problem. Town portals. You can buy an unlimited number of consumable scrolls in Tristram that will let you create a portal back to town at any point in the dungeon, and it stays active for however long you want. This lets you instantly get out, identify, repair, and sell your loot, and get back into the action, and makes the game flow so much better. Granted, you can only have one portal up at any time, but since your only goal is going further down anyways, replacing your old ones never feels like a trade-off. Technically, you do have a reason to go back up a floor sometimes, for side quests. For each save file, 8 side quests get randomly activated from a pool of 13 total quests that task you with some pretty simple additional things, like killing a specific monster or finding loot on one of the floors in the dungeon. These are easy, quick to do, and usually reward you with a very useful item, so if you come across one, be sure to complete them before venturing further down on your way to hell. There's something I haven't talked about at all yet. Hellfire. Diablo's first and only expansion, developed and released not by Blizzard themselves but Sierra Entertainment, came out 1 year after the initial release of the game and brought with it not just a new story arc, but also items, spells, some quality of life changes, and a new class, the Monk. You can even change some stuff in the game files to unlock 2 more secret classes, the Bard and Barbarian. Don't ask me why, it's an old game and old games were really weird. Anyways, the Monk wears staffs and is kind of a hybrid of all 3 base classes. The Bard is the only class in the game that can dual wield, and Barbarians have incredible strength, wear 2-handed axes, and are the only characters in Diablo that has no mana. The classes are probably the most exciting thing about Hellfire. The new spells and areas are basically just reskins of stuff that exists in the main game. The story is alright and the quests are decently fun, but it's really not what you'd expect when you think of an expansion for a Blizzard game.
Diablo is a very immersive experience. Even though the game is admittedly very aged, the combination of a simple but compelling gameplay loop, a wonderfully gruesome setting, and meticulous sound design will let you forget about all of that while you're on your quest to rid the world of the Lord of Hell. Until you finish the game, that is, and you notice that you just spent almost 10 hours furiously left-clicking and going back and forth between the dungeon and the town for at least a third of that time. I think the first Diablo is something that every action RPG fan should at least play once in their life. Not more though, because there are just deeper, more fleshed out, and plainly better titles in the genre nowadays. Just never forget the game that started it all. Can I get a stay a while and listen from everybody who's played this game before? And if you haven't, maybe tell me if you're interested in checking it out now. Also, don't forget to give the video a like. It's just a click for you, but it really helps my channel out. Thank you. Thank you very much for watching, and remember to always keep that backlog rolling.